He lay dying in the palace of Nebuchadnezzar II, the heat of Babylon pressing down on him like a funeral shroud. Fever-ridden, his body ravaged by exhaustion and wounds, Alexander the Great, the man who had carved his name across 3 continents, was at last brought low. When his generals, hardened killers who had followed him to the ends of the earth, gathered around him, they asked the question that would decide the fate of the known world. Who should inherit your empire? His lips barely moved. His voice was a whisper, "To the strongest." And with those words, the empire of Alexander the Great shattered. In June of 323 BC, the most powerful man on earth was dead. The Macedonian king, who had stormed through the Persian Empire like an avenging god, who had crushed armies and built cities in his wake, was gone. He had left behind an empire that stretched from Greece to India, from Egypt to the heart of Persia. But there was one problem. He had left behind no clear heir. What followed was not a peaceful transition of power. It was a bloodbath. The men who had once sworn loyalty to Alexander turned against each other in a desperate struggle for control. His empire, which had seemed invincible in his lifetime, now cracked and crumbled. This is the story of the wars that followed Alexander's death, a tale of ambition, betrayal, and a desperate, impossible dream to reclaim the empire of the man they had all once followed. Alexander's death was a catastrophe. His half-brother Aridaeus was feeble-minded and unfit to rule. His only son, Alexander IV, had not even been born yet. There was no natural successor, and so the men who had once fought for Alexander now fought for themselves. They turned on each other like wolves, each grasping for as much territory as their armies could take. The dream of Alexander, the vision of a single unified empire, died the moment his body went cold. The generals, once his most trusted commanders, became kings in their own right. Antigonus One Eye took Asia Minor and the Levant, dreaming of ruling it all. Seleucus, a brilliant tactician, carved out an empire in the Persian heartlands, founding what would become the Seleucid Empire. Ptolemy, one of Alexander's closest friends, seized Egypt and declared himself pharaoh, starting a dynasty that would last for 300 years. Cassander, ruthless and cunning, took Macedonia and Greece, ruling the very land that had sent Alexander to conquer the world. The great empire that had once stretched from the Aegean to the Indus had dissolved into a brutal free-for-all. The wars of the Successors, known as the Diadochi Wars, would rage for decades. Each of these men sought to reunite Alexander's empire. Each believed himself to be the rightful heir, and yet no one could hold it all together. The sheer vastness of Alexander's conquests had been possible only because of his singular genius. Without him, there was no one strong enough to rule it all. The wars were relentless. Armies clashed across the known world. Cities were sacked. Betrayals were constant. Antigonus One Eye came the closest to reclaiming Alexander's empire, but he was eventually crushed by a coalition of rivals. No single ruler would ever unite the lands again. Instead, the world entered a new era, the Hellenistic Age. Though Alexander's empire had fallen apart, his influence did not fade. The Hellenistic world was a paradox, an age of war and bloodshed, but also an age of cultural brilliance. Greek philosophy, art and science spread across the lands Alexander had conquered. Cities like Alexandria in Egypt became centers of knowledge, home to the greatest library the world had ever seen. The Seleucids pushed Greek influence deep into Asia. The Ptolemies ruled Egypt for centuries, blending Greek ambition with ancient Egyptian grandeur. But for all its achievements, the Hellenistic world was built on violence. The wars never truly stopped. Kingdoms rose and fell. Blood was spilled in endless conflicts over land and power. And then, from the west, a new power emerged. The Roman Republic, watching from the sidelines, saw an opportunity. One by one, it picked off the fractured Hellenistic states. By 31 BC, with the defeat of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, the last remnants of Alexander's world were gone. Alexander had died young, but his shadow loomed over history. For centuries, rulers would measure themselves against him. Julius Caesar wept at the thought that he had accomplished so little by comparison. Napoleon studied his campaigns obsessively. Even in the modern era, military strategists still analyze his conquests. His empire had died with him, but his legend, that would last forever. No king, no emperor, no conqueror would ever match the man who, for one brief, blazing moment, ruled the known world. What do you think? Was Alexander's empire always doomed to fall apart after his death, or could one of his successors have truly reassembled it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from history.